Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. This episode has an intense, down-to-the-wire match submitted by both generals, Daman commanding the Empire and Ninjahund leading the Vampire Counts. This is an ESL battle, and it's the first in a best of 3. I will be covering all games in the series over the upcoming episodes. First things first though, army composition. The Empire's coming in with the General of the Empire in charge, alongside a Light Wizard, an Empire Captain, 4 units of Spearmen, 2 units of Swordsmen, 2 units of Great Swords, 2 units of Handgunners, and 2 units of Demigryph Knights with Halberds. Meanwhile, the Vampire Counts have Manfred von Karstein in charge, alongside a Banshee, 2 units of Skeleton Warriors, a unit of Graveguard, a unit of Cairn Wraiths, the Sternsmen, 2 units of Blood Knights, a unit of Fellbats, the Dire Pack, and a Mortis Engine. You'll notice that one of the Skeleton Warriors has been ranked up to rank 1, and the Cairn Wraiths are ranked up to rank 3, and naturally the Regiments of Renown are rank 9 units by default. I'd also like to mention that Ninjahund streams Total War battles on a near daily basis, and hosts the Dogs of War Total War tournament as well. He's one of the best Total War players out there right now, and his Twitch link is on screen and in the description below, so make sure you follow him on Twitch and Twitter. Now, onwards to the battlefield. As always, let's start with an overview of what we're about to see here. Now, you'll notice right away that Daman has actually deployed off to the side here, sort of trying to create some confusion perhaps, maybe throwing Ninjahund off his game. And of course Ninjahund has deployed regularly, expecting a conflict to take place somewhere in the middle here, I suppose. But of course he now has to adjust to this layout. Right away as well, the General alongside the Empire Captain and the Light Wizard are headed off to visit the wonderful Wizard of the Vampire Counts, but Ninjahund came prepared. He has already surrounded Manfred with a unit of Blood Knights, and in fact, almost immediately in seeing this aggression, he's sort of rotating to face the threat, but while seeing this aggression, Ninjahund will immediately send these Fellbats in a general sort of direction to perhaps intercept or maybe get them out of the way, but more importantly and impressively responds with putting all the Blood Knights and the Dire Pack together, surrounding Manfred, making sure that he cannot be hit by any of these 3 units. So this flying death squad has been taken care of and basically neutralized if the intent was to snipe Manfred nice and early. Meanwhile, instead, you'll see Daman has changed his focus. He is rotating to take care of the Fellbats right away, and that's pretty good thinking because they can cause a little bit of trouble down the line. If they're interrupting the fire from the Handgunners, for example, they can be a nuisance. However, this is a bit too much of an expense. Putting down nets onto these Fellbats really wasn't worth it. That's a waste of Winds of Magic really nice and early, and that will and can come back to bite you later on in the battle. It would have been much better if the Empire Captain, the Light Wizard, and the General of the Empire had separated and intercepted the bats on their way, kind of trapped them and then taken care of them like that. Because there's a long way to go up the field. They would have had plenty of time to do that without having to waste the Winds of Magic there. Now, meanwhile, the Vampire Counts are marching up the field, and as are the Empire. So they're trying to sort of station themselves because, of course, the Empire has the range advantage. They've got the handgunners, so they don't want to go too far ahead. They want to have this open field of a firing range, so to speak. Meanwhile, they're also responding to the very apparent anti-large threat here. The Demigryph Knights are coming this way. Alongside the General and the Empire Captain, these Demigryph Knights with Halberds would do a decent amount of damage to this contingent over here, but they have to be very careful because that's a powerful fighting force right there. So again, just carefully laying them out over here, making sure they won't intercept and have to go through infantry when the time comes to activate them. Meanwhile, Ninjahund actually retreats. He gets very close to the range of these handgunners, right about to here, and then pulls back because there's no rush. However, now may have actually been the best time to push forward. The Light Wizard had just cast the net to take care of those Fellbats back there, so there may have actually had a time period there where the net was inaccessible and all these units could have actually pushed in. With that said, pulling back provides another opportunity to try and bait wasted Winds of Magic from that wizard. So an interesting play here, and you'll notice as these handgunners come out, Ninjahund continues to push back. So obviously Daman is being very careful. He doesn't want to leave his handgunners out there, open to be, taken care of by these cavalry units, for example. So very carefully pushing forward, being baited in, and Ninjahund evidently sees no reason to rush into combat. There's no artillery. The range isn't that far. It's not even crossbowmen. Not saying that it should have been, but these handgunners don't pose too much of a threat until they get pretty far up the field, as you'll see. Now, over here, you'll see now, as Ninjahund's pushing forward, because he is in range, this net does go down, holding the Mortis Engine in place. So the rest of the army continues to push forward, but the Mortis Engine and a unit of Graveguard are stuck in there. So that's a pretty good cast. It is extended, and the hope, I'm guessing, was that the Mortis Engine support would be missing as it heads down to the field, or as everybody else heads down to the field, which could be very crucial. Without the support of the Mortis Engine, not only are these units not getting the heal factor, the defensive units, the defending Empire units, are also not getting that trickle damage that the Mortis Engine causes. So that's a very helpful net, and Ninjahund decides to progress despite that. Now, there was some initial aggression as well from Ninjahund, trying to push in towards the Demigryph Knights. However, this clump comes together almost immediately, and Ninjahund decides better of it, sort of pulls back, and then pulls back the entire army, realizing that he has once again wasted some Winds of Magic here. Had Ninjahund actually progressed through and left the Mortis Engine behind, that net would have been ideal. It would have been quite useful. However, because of this retreat, that net was also deemed relatively useless. Good cast, though, don't get me wrong. It was a good call to cast that. However, Ninjahund responded in a very, very patient and very thought-out manner. So again, you'll see the slow advance continues, and I think this is when Ninjahund decides enough is enough, and he's going to go full aggression. The handgunners are sort of caught in the middle here, a little disorganized. They get a few shots off on the Sternsman, which is an alright call. The bullets would have been much better spent on, for example, the Skeleton Warriors or the Blood Knights, mainly because the Sternsmen actually have higher level of shields, so they're blocking more of those shots from the front arc than, say, even the Blood Knights would, or than the Skeleton Warriors would. So more damage could have been done there. I understand the threat level of the Sternsmen is a bit concerning, but one of the flanks could have been won a lot easier had the Skeleton Warriors or the Blood Knights been targeted instead. On the topic of targeting the Blood Knights, though, this net is absolutely brilliant, capturing basically a ton, well, the entirety of the high mobility units of the Vampire Counts have been caught out here, and these units could have been essential at the beginning portion of this combat. So at the end of the day, this net comes out just in time, and it is the extended effect, so that is going to last quite a while and can really help change how this battle plays out. You'll also notice that the Mortis Engine has now gone straight through the lines and has interrupted fire from the handgunners. So the goal there was a good idea. However, the Mortis Engine is very quickly going to get surrounded and severely damaged. Also, very good Soul Blight going down there alongside a Doom and Darkness that's causing a lot of damage to the Empire's leadership and their armor and their damage-causing abilities as well. So that's a really good cast there. As you'll see, it's reducing how effective these units are. So even though the Vampire Counts are severely outnumbered, they're able to stick it out for just a little bit longer. Unfortunately, the Mortis Engine does get fired upon and completely trounced. It's almost destroyed, and very soon will be. Ultimately, you'll see the Blood Knights have been freed up, and they're trying to charge in as well, trying to finally join into this combat. However, this unit of swordsmen has come in while they were netted and intercepted not only the Graveguard, but also they're preventing some of these Blood Knights from charging in. So this was a good move there, stopping full mobility even when the net was released. And off to the side here, the Spearmen were actually dragged around the side and are now being pushed in to attack the Blood Knights. So you'll see these Blood Knights go into the main conflict here, try to attack the Demigryph Knights with halberds, because now is a great chance to do it. The general is distracted here. They're able to go in alongside the Dire Pack and cause a severe amount of damage. As you can see, those Demigryph Knights are dropping fast, but these Spearmen, they come in right from behind, so very well placed. They were pulled off to the side and then dragged in to engage the Blood Knights from behind. And you'll see the Blood Knights are actually caught out. There's quite a bit of damage. On one side they've got these anti-large units, and on the other side they've got these anti-large units, so very well played there by Daman. And of course we've got Invocation of Nehek going down, which is going to help keep things alive for just a little bit longer. Obviously regeneration has been capped recently, so it works a little differently now. But of course Ninjahund trying whatever he can to keep these units alive. Overall, well cast. However, it's these handgunners that are now causing a severe amount of trouble here. they're just able to open fire freely into these ranks here, which is working out great, of course, for Daman. Now, it would have been great if Ninjahund had pulled back and gone in to engage these handgunners with one of those units of Blood Knights. However, instead, he's decided to stay engaged and try to frighten everybody off here, which is working great. Using Soul Blight, in this case, not only reduces their effectiveness, it also reduces their leadership. So couple that with the terror that the Banshee is bringing in, you've got very effective use of morale-breaking behavior here. Now, finally, the Cairn Wraiths and one of these units of Blood Knights, they do manage to pierce through the center because all of these units had sort of dispersed, they'd surrendered. And a very clever play here by Daman, pushing these handgunners back and trying to keep these guys off to this side as well, trying to create sort of an alleyway so that as these units charge through, they can be fired upon from both sides. It's sort of like the retreating kill box, but without the actual box shape. It's creating an alleyway of death, so to speak. Now over here, the General of the Empire does come back in, trying to buff the morale of these troops. Meanwhile, the Stearnsmen are able to fend off a bunch of units. They are a very high quality unit, of course, comes with a heavy price tag, but they are fending off all these units, keeping them busy, and these Blood Knights are trying to take care of these handgunners, get them out of the picture. So you'll see, as they're charging in, taking this decent amount of fire, the Light Wizard comes down and drops this cast. Perfect timing. These guys are trapped just before they could engage these handgunners, and of course these handgunners are going to open fire and cause a severe amount of damage. So this was extremely painful for Ninjahund. Had that charge gone through, this battle could have gone very differently right now. And you'll notice also, these handgunners were firing at these Blood Knights, and immediately Ninjahund responds. He cannot lose these units. They're essential to his the remainder of the battle, and so these Cairn Wraiths are now going to engage these handgunners while these Spearmen are terrified and running away. So overall, great management there by both players. You know, Daman for splitting those handgunners up, and then for Ninjahund to immediately realize what was going on and respond right away, minimize the efficiency of that strategy. Now you'll see over here, finally the Stearnsmen are about to fall. There they go, and all these units are freed up now to do as they please. The General of the Empire again coming in, trying to keep these guys able and willing to fight. They've got their defense buffed up and their leadership. These Cairn Wraiths come in, but they're unable to cause terror because, again, of that leadership buff, and all of these Spearmen are now engaged with these horses. All of these Blood Knights are going to have a hard time piercing through these Spearmen. More Spearmen being pushed in here, and these handgunners being kept at a safe distance, so that if things go poorly here, and and the Empire needs to fall back, there is that backup, there is that support from these handgunners. Now, meanwhile, over here, of course, once that buff wears out, these units are going to be terrified. That Banshee in there doing great work terrifying all these units, but Ninjahund makes a severe mistake here. You'll notice he goes straight in for the General of the Empire. In theory, that makes sense. He's unsupported right now. He could be taken care of very quickly. However, because these units were running away because of terror, you'll notice very quickly, as soon as the effects of terror wear off, they will turn back and get back into combat. So just give it a second there. There you go. So they stopped routing. Their terror turned into a rout, but because they weren't being chased, they decide to turn back, and now they can reform. Again, here, Ninjahund focuses on these handgunners, trying to get rid of them. Very well played by Daman, keeping them there, peppering in that damage, making them feel like a high-value target, and Ninjahund comes down and charges them. Instead, if he'd gone through and slowly taken care of each and every one of these units as they were routing, split up his Blood Knights finally to take care of them one at a time, he could have destroyed them, caused them to actually shatter as opposed to simply rout. But instead now, while the handgunners have been taken care of, Daman is able to reform. So you'll see on both sides of the field now, everyone is sort of reforming their lines, trying to get their units back into some sort of formation. And it's, again, great move here. When you're so low on unit count, you're so low on morale, every little bit helps. You'll notice, of course, the morale is not perfect, but they are encouraged by nearby troops. They have their flanks secure. Everything like that helps. And even trying to, what I would have liked to see is if these units were walking, marching to their destination as opposed to running. And on both sides, even Ninjahund was running them around. Had they done that, there was a slight chance that some fatigue could be recovered. And fatigue, as we've discussed before, makes a huge difference to both morale and fighting capability. So it's really funny seeing here this reforming of the lines. And even though it might look like Ninjahund's been destroyed here and has no chance, with some proper management, this could go terribly for the Empire because, again, fear and terror are devastating weapons. So let's take a look at how this goes down. The Empire does push forward, probably sensing blood, the blood of the Blood Knights, ready to, end the day. And as they push forward, you'll notice that, again, this ball is formed, and immediately Ninjahund decides that he's going to split up his troops. He's going to send these guys around to cause some damage from the flanks, and the Banshee's being pushed forward sort of as a distraction. And you'll notice these handgunners actually first open fire on the Banshee, who's ethereal, so it doesn't really do much damage to begin with, plus it's an individual unit. But right away, Daman does turn around and start trying to target these Blood Knights instead. So very quick response again, and also great play dropping that buff again. Stand your ground, just helping make sure these guys don't break when this terrifying / frightening unit gets in range. Very well played. That little morale boost makes all the difference, because a shatter now would be the end of the game. Now, these guys do come in, and here is one mistake that Daman makes right at the end game here. These guys are still moving. A quick select and backspace, meaning halt, would have made them stop and maybe just given them enough time to brace for impact against this Blood Knight charge. Now, with that said, the charge doesn't pierce all the way through. However, negating that charge bonus would have definitely helped just keep them alive for a little bit longer, because you will see, again, once that buff falls away, terror, fear, and the damage all kicks in, and you'll see right away these guys start to shatter and break. Also, Manfred is in there again, trying to duke it out, regain some spellcasting capabilities. He manages to get a cast off, puts down Soul Blight, and that I would say is a fatal error by Ninjahund. Instead of a Soul Blight, he would have been much better off casting probably Spirit Leech. Might have given him just a little bit of an advantage, because the general has been brought down to half health. He is up against I think a single Blood Knight as well, but ultimately is able to get away. So a Spirit Leech might have been the way to go there. A Soul Blight was good thinking overall, trying to get everyone to run away, but when you have so few troops, that temporary damage to leadership is not as efficient as the permanent damage, or the more long-term damage that the death of a commander can do. Unfortunately, this is where Manfred and the Banshee against the world doesn't really work out. Manfred drops dead right there, and the Banshee tries to duke it out with the General of the Empire. She may be ethereal, she may be terrifying, but this is not a situation that she can stand up to. Everyone charges in with full confidence, and within just a moment's time, you will see the Banshee falls. Victory for Daman. A great first game, extremely intense, goes right down to the wire. Like I said, both players played absolutely impressively, and I really hope you understand the purpose of this battle. I felt it was a great display of the use of magic, morale, and key patience. Neither player gave up, even when they were severely outnumbered or when leadership was entirely crippled. Right to the end, the battle could have swung either way. There is no time for surrender on the battlefield, and both Ninjahund and Daman showed that if you keep persistent, if you keep on your toes and keep your enemy on the back foot, you can make great things happen. I think both players made some very minor mistakes and one or two fatal flaws that cost the battle. Near the end there, when Ninjahund wasn't chasing those terrified unit or wasn't making those routing units convert into a shattered unit, that really changed how the battle played out. It allowed those units to reform. Instead, if those units had shattered, the handgunners, while they can cause damage from range, they could have been more easily taken care of than an entirely reformed spearmen block. At the end of the day, you guys have seen one of the rarest sights in humanity. Ninjahund lost a battle. As I said before, he has an impressive win rate. This is an extremely impressive match. Great fight by both players. As I mentioned before, this is the first battle in a best of 3, and they are all just as intense. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content, and make sure you keep submitting your replays. Battle replays are always interesting. They're a great way to learn, especially when you get something as intense and close as this, where the smallest decisions and indecisions can make all the difference.